You know what time it is. You know what time it is.
How firm thy friendship. Oh,
you know what time it is. You roll with them boys of the fall. You know what time it is. On the ground with a nose for the ball. You know what time it is. Blood, sweat, and them tears for this game. Leaving it all out on the field with no fear for you lames. It's Buckeyes by a billion. We in the building with over 100,000. We represent from the uttermost to the public housing. If we don't play, all wide receivers got your secondary shook, so they cook them like Bobby Flay. Hey, stay out of my way and trust me, cause I know it's OH. Somebody please give this brother an IO. Come on.
What up, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to the Buckeye Boys, where we talk college football with real fans. I'm Devin. I'm not going to lie, man. Stars, you got me with your comment. Stars said it's time for the Tinker the Stinker show featuring Devin. Yes, my dog Tinker has seemed to catch some popularity, which is kind of an ongoing theme with me on these shows. Cujo, my pet raccoon, he got more attention than I did, and now Tinker is taking over. I'm sure she will pop up here shortly. But excited to be here tonight. Appreciate everybody that has joined me in the chat. If you haven't, I encourage you, get in that chat, man. Talk it up with some of these people. Make yourself a new friend or two. You never know. I've made plenty of them. It's a good time, man. Before we get going, hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button as well. Download the Spreaker app. Give Scoop some love. Apple Podcasts, same thing. Give us a like button over there. And go check out the Scoop message board. Got a good show planned today. I've had this show planned for probably, 7 days now. I have 3 shows that I was supposed to do last week that I haven't done. So you're about to start seeing those things. So if this is information you've already heard about on other shows and other places, I apologize for that. But I wrote several notes, got thumbnails ready for these things. So I'm going to do the shows. It's the off season. We're going to go over the Ryan Day interview, talk about some interesting things that I thought he brought up. I know some people can say a lot of coach speak in there, right? There might be, but I still kind of want to go over some things that he said and some things that he went over. So guys, super chats are open as well. So get your questions in, and I will get to them towards the end of the show. But hope everybody's had an amazing day. It's been raining on and off here in Tallahassee the last couple days. Pretty cold. So I'm still being punished for, telling everybody it was 85 here and sunny and all that. I'm still going through my punishment. Hopefully it's almost over. But all is well on that front. But let's dive into this thing, man. Ryan Day went on 97.1 The Fan on the Ryan Day show. It was the first time he spoke in a couple months. And like I said, he went over quite a bit of things. Not a whole lot of things like super exciting. But what I want to start off with is geared more towards the talent acquisition side of Buckeye football because, there's always that debate in high school recruiting and in the portal, how the Buckeyes handle it, how they follow the rules and should they not, and how they don't, overpay for recruits and should they. And in particular, this last offseason, what you had happen was 31 players enter the portal. And Indiana win a national title. And those combined things, Indiana winning the national title of a bunch of old players, which I'll mention something about that in a second as well, and Ohio State losing 31 players in the portal, man, it just sets some people off. It sets some people off in Buckeye Nation that automatically went into, hey, the Buckeyes have to completely change how they do things. They just need to start paying some of these players. I don't care if it makes somebody else mad in the locker room. I don't want to hear the word culture anymore. Stop recruiting high school players. Let's just get our roster out of the portal. It just kind of, some people I think took it pretty far. Now, are there some things that need to change and I believe are changing? Yeah. As we see ultimately in the end, the Buckeyes did pretty darn good with talent acquisition. They're, ranked 3rd in the nation for high school recruiting and portal class as well. Their recruiting class is all the way up to the 4th best recruiting class in the nation, by the way. 247 updated their rankings. I got a show planned for that too, so we're going to dive into that. But I wanted to start off with Ryan Day. That's kind of what he got asked about. He got asked about the change in college football, kind of, and how the Buckeyes look at it. And I found it interesting that, we're sitting back here. Some people are sitting back here as fans saying everything needs to change. And one of the things Ryan Day said is, nah, man, this is still about high school players. It's still about developing them. And this cannot be a year-to-year roster. He did say, hey, now that might change in the future, but as of right now, you still got to have players on your team, right, that want to come here, stay here, and be developed, right, and build the culture on the team. You know what I mean? And that's what I've always agreed with as well is, you can go the other route with this, but there will be consequences to that. You will lose certain things, right, about the team, about the culture, about the brotherhood. It's just what it is. Ryan Day also brought up their focus on retaining. Ryan Day said we only lost one starter in the portal as well. And the interesting thing that he also brought up, and this is something that he brought up that a lot of people didn't think about, and I think a lot of people are calling bull crap on this one. I, however, am not. He brought up the fact that he thinks, and he literally put a number on it, which I found kind of weird. He said he believes probably 5 to 12, that was his numbers. He said 5, 10, or 12 of the players that entered this year would have entered last year if the Buckeyes didn't go so far in the playoffs, right? Kind of makes sense. Got about 2 years worth of players because they only had 5 days, and it was afterwards, right? It was after we were done with the national title game. Boom, the portal opens up for 5 days. Well, teams have already filled their rosters at that point for the most part, so there wasn't, all these offers being thrown around. Teams, it's a lot harder for a team to tamper and make an offer towards a player that's on a team going through the playoffs about to win a national title. It just doesn't, it's not as easy for them. Ryan Day talked about, the people that want to, just essentially go get your whole roster out of the portal every single year. He hit on this as well. He also hit on, you can't teach culture in 1 year. And that's what he talked about when he's bringing in these portal players as well, is they still take that into an account, because he also said, when it's all said and done, this thing is still about relationships here at Ohio State. And that's how they operated. That's how they operated in the recruiting class. That's how they operated in the portal class. So I'm in agreement with him. Something else that he brought up was the fact that the team is now going to have about 85 to 90 scholarship players on it with a 105 player limit. He said right now there's some rules, right, where you can get around that. But rosters are getting smaller. Rosters are definitely getting smaller today in college football, and it's kind of crazy. He brought up the recruiting class. He brought up this year, they kind of had an idea of the players that were going to enter the portal, which is why you see how big the recruiting class was. And, you ask yourself, what's next year recruiting class going to look like? Well, he just said that he still wants high school recruiting to be the lifeblood of this program. So, right, a lot of people are saying next year is going to be a smaller class because the Buckeyes are going to focus more heavily in the portal. Ryan Day said that's not true. He said high school recruiting is still going to be the lifeblood. But because this year's class was so big, he doubts that it will be that big next year. So that was an interesting thing that he brought up as well. And he also talked about the things we know about as well. These players that entered the portal, he said, hey, every family is different. In some cases, $100,000 is a lot of money to some of these families. Ryan Day brought up that $100,000 number, and he said, right, some teams are simply, as I told you, they are finding out what the Buckeyes are playing, some of these depth pieces, and they are coming in. They don't have to double offers. They don't have to triple offers. Some of them, they are simply coming in and offering 50 or 100,000 more dollars, right, than the Buckeyes are currently paying them. And that is getting them to jump ship. And he still talked about when you come here, you got to have your eyes focused on the bigger picture. On a side note from that, he did talk about, again, which he's done frequently, he did talk about how much he absolutely despises the one portal window. And I don't know how many shows I've done on that. I don't know what the answer is. It's hard to find an answer with classes, and there's all kind of different, reasons for that. But again, the portal window is absolutely wild, especially if you're in the middle of the playoffs trying to navigate this portal. Yes, I know teams did it this year. I know Indiana did good in the portal, yada, yada, yada. But it's still a little bit whacked out that teams got to be, focusing on the playoffs and also in the portal as well. So that's kind of the overall view that Ryan Day had there. I'm trying to see if I wrote anything else down. Oh, he also mentioned this as well. He also mentioned the fact that, right, it wasn't so much the 31 players that we lost wasn't really the main reason that chose who they went after in the portal. I know I did not say that right, but right. You would think that, oh my gosh, we losing these 31 players. We got to go in the portal and replace those players. What I found interesting is Ryan Day, he didn't really talk about replacing the 31 that we lost. What he talked about was replacing the third-year players that should be playing a fourth, not should be, but could be playing a fourth year. That's how the Buckeyes operate. They expect them to play that fourth year. Right. So next year we should have a fourth-year player on the team, but because we don't, the Caleb Downs, the Carnell Tate, the Arvell Reese, the K-Mac, right? There needs to be a fourth-year player in those spots on the team. So when they go look in the portal, when these guys decide to go to the NFL and they go look in the portal, that's what they have to bring in, because that's what make up championship football teams. When I heard Ryan Day talking about that, all I could think about was that 24 team that won us the national title and how focused he was on retention. It was a little bit harder this year with some of the draft grades that some of these Buckeyes were getting. I mean, most of the Buckeyes that had the option to stay and didn't stay are first-round draft picks. Max Clare, which I don't think he should have stayed another year for sure, especially after finding out who our offensive coordinator. I wonder what Max Clare thinks now. I wonder if you go ask Max Clare if he thinks he made the right decision, especially after Arthur Smith becomes our offensive coordinator. I wonder what he would say. It's an interesting one. I might try to figure that out. Another little interesting piece of information I'd like to give you guys is that, we all want to freak out about these 31 players that were lost in the portal. I mean, some people got on boards, got on shows and said the culture at Ohio State is gone. Culture doesn't matter anymore. And I've said it 100 times. I literally could not be more against that statement and disagree with that statement any harder than I do. When Ryan Day got on, that was still what he was talking about. Culture, culture, culture. High school kids that stay. Those are the foundation, right? Because he brought up that you can't teach culture in 1 year. You know what I mean? Now, this year's different. This year's a hard reset, right? A lot of new freshmen coming in, a lot of players in the portal coming in. But if it was just left to the coaches don't really make up the culture. It's the players that do. So if you don't have a set group of players that have been in your program for 2 or 3 years, understand what is expected of them, have been with other players that have since moved on, those are the people that teach these portal guys more about the culture than the coaches do. I mean, that's just the reality of it. The coaches can only do so much. There's not as many as them as there are players that have been in the program a long time that can help teach this culture. But on that note, we lost 31 players, okay, in 7,000 snaps, 7,000 football snaps with those 31 players. Tegra Shabola made up a big chunk of that 7,000. Keep that in mind. What did we gain? We gained 17 players and over 14,000 snaps of football, right? And a lot of those at Alabama, the Big Ten, we saw where we got some of these players from. They're very experienced players at a high level in a high level program, which we'll dive into that a little bit deeper as well. So overall, Ryan Day talking about the talent acquisition. I'd liked to hear he's still focused on high school recruiting. And the base of this thing is still culture. Kids got to fit in here. They got to want to come here. He said the portal cannot just be transactional. It just can't be. And I loved hearing that. Will that change one day? It might, but right now it doesn't have to. And I'm not sure how you can possibly argue with that, considering you guys think Ohio State is doing this the wrong way. Answer me that. Do you think Ohio State did it the wrong way? Now, before this thing was finished, a lot more people would have said, yes, they're doing it the wrong way. They got to pay players. They got to pay them. They got to not care if it hurts somebody's feelings on the roster. They got to not care if it worries about, if it, screws up the culture in the room. People were actually saying that. But now that it's all said and done, final rankings in, everything's all said and done, the Buckeyes have a top 3 recruiting and portal class. I would beg to differ with you. I would argue that the structure they have in place now is still, to this day, working very good, because the only piece of evidence that you have to point towards, hey, this isn't working, in my mind, is the 31 players that entered the portal. If you believe this or not, most of that was because of last year in the playoffs. Ryan Day said a chunk of those people would have left last year already. As you know, remember, last year hardly any left. And that kind of hurt us a little bit more this year, because then I still go back to, and I again, people will argue about this forever. But in my mind, I mean, we did not lose the game in Miami or Indiana because they had more talent than we did. I just don't believe that. I know some people will talk about the offensive line, but I'm not one of those people. If you are, that's fair. I think there's evidence that goes both ways. You know what I mean? You could make your argument that, yeah, we lost because we didn't have enough talent on the offensive line. You could give me your points and your evidence, and then I could say the opposite, give you my points and evidence. And I think you could both make some pretty good arguments there. So again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're wrong or that's a wrong opinion or anything like that. But that is how I feel about the matter. And if you watched my recent show with VB Coach, somebody that watches the offensive line, he kind of feels the same way. He talked about some things schematically that didn't help his offensive line. But so overall, right, do we know how much of it's coach speak? I don't know. We don't know, because, you also do see the Buckeyes adjusting a little bit. They have changed, right? And to be honest with you, right, there's two things that happened this year. Well, really 3. There were 2 things publicly, another third one that I know about, that really showed me that the Buckeyes have changed the way that their recruiting strategy. Number 1 was Legend Bay, right? They looked at Legend Bay. They saw how talented he was, and the recruitment was absolutely full of drama, and they still took him. That leads me to believe Ohio State is changing with how things are going, because anymore there tends to be a lot of drama one way or the other. It was very surprising to me the Buckeyes still went for that one there. The second one, the Chris Henry Jr. recruitment. Obviously, they put up the money. Obviously, they put up enough money to get Chris Henry Jr. to stay yes, even though Chris Henry Jr. did not come here for the money. There were higher offers elsewhere. But also, that was not the only wide receiver that the Buckeyes upped the ante on. Buckeyes got 2 5-star wide receivers. They did the same thing for the other one as well, when in the past they wouldn't have done that. But I think Brian Hartline leaving this year kind of put him in a position where it was like, okay, now we can justify it. We don't have that Brian Hartline discount here, so maybe it made him feel better about it. But either way, I think the Buckeyes pony up a lot more than what the fan base gives them credit for ponying up. And we'll get into that in a couple of these position groups as well. Ryan Day also talked about the coaches as well. Obviously, Ryan Day has made several coaching hires. At the time, the special teams coordinator was not hired yet, and Arthur Smith was not official. So he never talked about Arthur Smith's name, but it's interesting listening to him try to go around not saying his name. But he brought up Cortez Hankton at first. And one of the interesting things he told me about was how he let the receivers go in and talk to Cortez Hankton. And every single receiver that walked out of that room came out of the room shaking their head yes. Like, hey, this is our dude. Ryan Day brought that up and talked about, hey, that's one of the big reasons why he got hired here. And that happened last year too. But I can't remember which coach it was. I think maybe it wasn't last year. It was Coach Locke. And that was 100% Coach Locke. Yeah. Travion Henderson and the running backs, they talked to Coach Locke as well, and they said the same thing. So it's really cool to see Ryan Day. That is really what he does. He lets these players at least have a little bit of a say. There's several things that go into this hire, obviously, but I think it's cool that he lets players have some type of say in the matter. And then he brought up the offensive coordinator thing. And if you remember, during this OC search, a rumor started to spread that was going to be one of our younger staff members, one of Keenan Bailey, Billy Fessler, Tyler Bowen type of duo situation. And I never once believed it at all. And let me finish before you judge me. I never once believed it whatsoever. Well, if you listen to Ryan Day's interview and believe what he said, you should have believed him, because he said he put a lot of thought in hiring Keenan Bailey because of how loyal he has been. He brought up that Keenan Bailey has had other opportunities and chose to stay. He also brought up that Billy Fessler and Tyler Bowen have had opportunities as well to go be offensive coordinators somewhere. He didn't say offensive coordinators, but that's what it is. But he said other opportunities, and they chose to be loyal. So he said he put a lot of thought into that. I think that's coach speak. I think, what else is he supposed to say? You know what I mean? But that's just my opinion. That's just my little humble opinion from good old Devin here. But, y'all are entitled to your own opinion. Do you believe Ryan Day? In the chat, do you guys think Ryan Day put a lot of thought and effort into hiring Keenan Bailey as the offensive coordinator? Do you think that was a realistic option for Ryan Day this year? I mean, ultimately, he said, no, I decided we had to have an experienced play caller come in here. And that's what he was talking about. He never said Arthur Smith's name, but he said you had to have an experienced play caller. The other thing he brought up as well is we want him to be experienced so he can help these younger coaches along as well, train them up to be potentially the offensive coordinator here at Ohio State one day. And another big thing that he talked about was whoever we get has to want to be here, has to want to specifically be in the college game atmosphere, because it is different. He said he wanted an experienced NFL play caller. He said an ex-head coach wasn't a requirement, but hey, he'll take it. And he called Arthur Smith a home run hire. That's absolutely what he said. So I love that. Ryan Day, talked about in the process of looking for it. We kind of spoke about this on the show. I know several other people did too, about there are the Mike Vrabel connection. There were several other coaching connections that Ryan Day had that he could call and reach out to and ask them about Arthur Smith. Well, he pretty much said he did that. He said, hey, if you guys can connect the dots coaching, you guys know, right, that I, had some people I could call and get their thoughts on the offensive coordinator hire. But he called Arthur Smith an absolute home run hire. So It's a done deal. It's official. You got to love hearing that confidence. You got to love hearing that, Ryan Day also utilizes other people. And you hear throughout this interview as well, even when choosing players, he'll go to other players that have been in other schools and ask about it. He'll let the receivers talk to a wide receiver coach before they're hired to make sure they're going to vibe good. He'll call other coaches in the league. So Ryan Day seems to be maturing, right? And not afraid of, I guess, putting his guard down a little bit and letting other people get involved here. And that's a sign of a really good leader, is empowering the people below you to be good leaders as well, to help with choices, make decisions, and all those things. But at least in my experience in life and being a leader, I mean, that comes through hard lessons learned and maturity and being a leader. So I know that's me digging deep into Ryan Day, but that's one of the things, listen to this interview, I felt like has changed a little bit him, and I like seeing that. So again, props to Ryan Day. Then Ryan Day dove into the transfer portal pickups that he got. We're going to go over them. Never really, he said a couple things that'll catch your guys' ear, but nothing too crazy. He talked about Terry Moore, the safety from Duke that we picked up, who, interestingly enough, started off at Duke as a running back, that Ryan Day said. I did not know that. Ryan Day specifically said he came in, right, to compliment Leroy Roker, was the first name that he said, and Jalen McClain. Talked about him being long and lengthy and, covering a lot of space in the backfield. But the thing that caught my eye was the fact that he brought up Leroy Roker, because everybody wants to be upset about Fahim Delane leaving, yet we forget that Leroy Roker played in the Miami game in critical moments, and Fahim Delane did not. So Ohio State very high on Leroy Roker. Also brought up Earl Little, FSU player. When Earl Little came to the Buckeyes, I immediately thought that's our nickel. And I said that, and I got a lot of people in the comments called me an idiot. You're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. He's a safety. He's always going to be a safety. He's not the nickel. Well, Ryan Day must be an idiot too, because he said he can play safety. He can play nickel. He's very versatile. He also said, and this is one of those instances as well, that Ryan Day, I think in his mature leadership, he sat down with Caleb Downs, because he played with Caleb Downs at Alabama. It's getting to be, you never know the connections behind the scene with this portal. It's wild, man. You never know who knows who. And right, that's why I don't think you'll ever get rid of tampering. There's so many back channels anymore that it's impossible to monitor. You'll never be able to monitor it. It'll never happen. But anyway, talked to Caleb Downs, said he'd be a good fit here. Ryan Day sounded very excited about him. Brought up Christian, linebacker from Wisconsin that we got. He brought up, hey, Arvell Reese left after his third year. So he said, I'm really excited about Riley Pettijohn, Peyton Pierce, TJ Alford. He said those names, but he said, but we're expecting Arvell Reese for a fourth year. We're expecting a fourth-year player to be in the room. So we have to bring in that experience as well. And he talked about when the Buckeyes played him. And he said one of the things that really stood out to him was the fact that at the beginning of the game, the dude didn't have a club on his hand, and he was watching the film in the second half and noticed he had a club on his hand, and the dude was playing with a shattered hand, which obviously showed toughness. So if you're a football player out there and you break a bone, continue to play, because it might get you a spot on the team in the portal, man. You never know. I'm going to keep that in mind. That's a life lesson I'm going to learn. Next time I break a bone, I'm not stopping. I'm going to keep going, and that's going to give me a new opportunity in life. But I'm excited about those guys. Let me check this chat real fast. You guys are probably talking about hot chocolate and everything else. You guys don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? I kind of like hot chocolate, by the way, but I just like sweet tea, dude. I just drink sweet tea a lot. Natural. Yeah, about hiring Keenan Bailey. I do too. I do too. That's exactly how I feel. Liz, I think you're talking about that as well. He said, I don't think so at all. Along the same lines, anyway. Steely said he wants a 600-pound lineman. Yeah, that'd be good. If we could get a 600-pound guard or defensive tackle that's able to run and be agile, that's a good idea, Steely. I'm gonna start looking for one. How much weight can a toilet take before breaking? They're rated for about 500 pounds, depending on which one you get, but they're made out of ceramic, so they can hold a lot of weight. But I'm gonna tell you, when they break, they are sharp. They'll cut the crap out of you. I've broke a toilet before, not sitting on it, but doing some demos from time to time. Steely's like, why are you bringing up these comments, Devin? Yeah, no. Yeah, Studley. He said so. He said, you don't want to see the chat tonight, Dev. Well, yeah. I'm seeing that now. No, I don't give a dang. As long as you guys are having a good time, that's all I care about. Mark says you don't want to know. No, the chat has turned shifty. Y'all are wild and out, bro. What is going on? Yeah, Liz, I figured that's what you thought. Obviously, that was a joke, Don. Don't. Steely did not say that. Steely was talking about something else. I was being sarcastic. Ask Dev how a blind man knows. Okay, here we go. We're going to where are we at? Okay, so I don't know. I guess feel, taste, smell. I don't know. Anyway, Ryan Day talked about the quarterback position as well. And obviously, he brought up Julian Sand. Now, man, guys, I have seen way too many chats, in my opinion, way too many chats, way too many message boards, way too many shows. I saw somebody put out a projection for the starters. Like, hey, these are our sure lock starters that we're going to have on the team. And they had a question mark by quarterback. And I'm just very confused by that, man. We had a redshirt freshman playing quarterback this year. He's one of the youngest Heisman candidates that's been in New York in quite some time. He broke the college football completion percentage record all time. I'm just super confused, man. He's definitely mobile and agile. He can 100% do it. Go watch the Washington game. Go watch the Wisconsin game. He can definitely do it. But he's a young quarterback, man. It's just, I feel like everybody before the season agreed that we would see freshman moments, but this is going to be the year for him to grow and be that. And Ryan Day talked about this has to be a huge offseason for Julian Sand. So either way, long story short, Julian Sand's the dude. I think he's an absolute baller. I would not trade Julian Sand for a single other quarterback in college football right now. Chat. Would you trade Julian Sand for any of the quarterbacks in college football right now? If so, who would that be? DeCorian Moore? Sam Levitt? Darian Mensah? I personally would not, but that's just me. Talked about Tavian St. Clair as well, and he said, we know he can throw the ball. Big, athletic. Yeah, I love seeing this. Nope. No chance. I'm not pulling up Steely's. Note, not a chance, Dev. Yeah, I know. That's one of the ones I said I can agree. I said I can understand the offensive line argument, but there is way more evidence to point. if you're one of the people that doesn't want Julian saying, there's not a big list of evidence you have to back up that opinion. It's still okay to have it, but I'm just saying, if I want to present a case to the court, to the jury, about why Julian Sand should be the quarterback, I've got a stack of evidence that's high. I've got overwhelming evidence to squash your theory that he should not be. Also talked about defensive line, brought up John Walker and James Smith and the fact that they recruited them out of high school, why it's important to still keep those relationships active. Brought up Quay Rasal, talked about how versatile he is. Hand in the dirt edge, stand-up edge, linebacker. Ryan Day talked about all that as well. He also brought up Zion and Epi and Will Smith and Edric and those guys. He didn't say anything too exciting or nothing that we don't know for the defensive line. Talked about cornerback. He talked about how important it was to retain Devin Sanchez, Jermaine Matthews, Miles Lockhart, and even Jordan Woods, the tall guy. I love that he brought up Jordan Woods' name because, right, really lower ranked kid. I think rightfully so. Really tall and lengthy, really athletic. Everybody wrote him off. Nobody ever says his name. But when he got to this position group, he talked about how hard it was, right, to retain, how much it takes to retain Devin Sanchez and Jermaine Matthews. Could you imagine the offers that Devin Sanchez was getting in the portal if he entertained any of them? I doubt he did. But can you imagine, right, if there was even a hint that Devin Sanchez was going to enter the portal? I mean, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, it would be absolutely flooded. He would be probably top 5 most sought after corners in college football this year. I mean, it's wild. But the Buckeyes kept him. Talked about Cam Calhoun and the fact that, bringing in a senior. Again, bringing in that experience to be in the room and help these freshmen along best it can. Well, he lit up a little bit when he started talking about Dominic Kelly. I've had Dominic Kelly on the show, and you guys know why. Hopefully you guys see Dominic Kelly was the gold bar in this class, man. And Ryan Day brought up some reasons why. He's got 3 years of eligibility left. He can cover with the best of them, and he's very, very smart. Dominic Kelly has got to be up there and, up there on the list in this portal class for these Buckeyes. Wide receivers. It got a little bit interesting in the wide receiver conversation. He talked about how much the Buckeyes want to play 3 wide receivers this year. And he went on a little tangent about this JJ thing. I think Ryan Day hears the fan base complaining about the portal class and that the Buckeyes aren't going after or paying for these higher ranked guys. But he reminded us that it takes a lot to keep the best wide receiver in college football. Okay, so just a reminder, JJ is staying in Columbus. That doesn't happen strictly on the fact that JJ loves Ohio State and he's going to stay here for next to nothing. He stays here because he loves Ohio State and because Ohio State pays him fairly. Now ask, chat, what is a fair number to pay Jeremiah Smith this year? If you got to build a roster and you need to have other wide receivers in the room as well, so you have to save money for them, what's a fair number to pay Julian Sand this year? Julian Sand. JJ Smith. That's a tough question, huh? Realistically, how much do you think Miami or Oregon or Texas would be willing to pay Jeremiah Smith to hit the portal and go to them? I think he's probably making $4 or $5 million this year just from the Buckeyes, but the dude's making over $10 million, probably $15 million college football with all the deals that he has. But I feel like there are teams operating right now that would offer JJ Smith $8 to $10 million to transfer. That wouldn't surprise me if he had those offers. Miami's paying $10 million for Darian Mensah. That's my guesstimate, paying $10 million for Darian Mensah. $4 million to settle. Or what was it? Yeah, $4 million to settle and probably $6 million to bring him there. So absolutely wild. Oh, that was wrong, but either way, still 10 million. Dude, I was going to say something else. Oh, bro, have you guys seen this back and forth with Steel Chambers and this USC safety dude? Oh, dude, they have to be doing it on purpose. I think they're doing it on purpose because it's gaining so much, right? I mean, you're lighting a fire in Buckeye Nation right now. This dude has to be doing it just for attention because he said that and look, it's working because I'm talking about it, but I didn't say his name, so you guys don't know his name. He said if J.J. Smith played at USC, he would be 10 times more recognizable, nationally. That's just the funniest thing ever. The Buckeyes, guys, is it a homer take to say the Buckeyes are the number one team to get players recognized nationally? J.J. Smith, Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles. Nationally, I feel like their names are everywhere. They're all over the place. They're everywhere. Hey, what up, B? He knows a little something about USC, man. But I got to call you and ask you about that. I know you got some things to say, V. I'm going to give you a call. I want to see what you think on that because USC obviously has had some well-known players, Reggie Bush days and other players as well. But I legit am asking that question because it's like, I don't pay much attention to that. So I don't know. I just obviously in my little bubble, I feel like, J.J. Smith is the most popular, player in college football, like nationally, that's what I think. But shoot, maybe I'm wrong. We shall see. But went on to talk about Brandon Ennis as well. Said he was critical to bring him back as well to be a captain. And he also said that he has got to make a big step on the field. Okay, so for the Buckeye fans that want that to happen, Ryan Day said it as much on a radio interview that he knows it as well. That's a good thing to hear. Brandon Ennis knows it as well, and I expect a big jump up as well. Talked about the Z position, Carnell Tate leaving. So they were expecting a fourth-year wide receiver in the Z position this year. So what they do? They went and got Kyle Parker and Devin McQuinn. Ryan Day didn't go into a lot of detail with a lot of players, but he went into detail with Devin McQuinn. So I think Ryan Day is very excited about the UTSA, isn't that right, receiver Devin McQuinn. He brought up that he runs a 10-3 100-meter dash, and he said that when UTSA played Texas A&M, Devin McQuinn made several good plays against top competition. So that opened my eyes a little bit. I'd say that's probably the number one thing that Ryan Day said in the interview, that because I was more excited about Kyle Parker coming in than I was Devin. But based off of what Ryan Day said, and this is me reading into it a whole lot, I would say keep an eye on Devin McQuinn and being the starting receiver at the Z position. But brought up Kyle Parker and the experience and relationship with Cortez Hankton. Brought up Phillip Bell and Desi Jones. Talked about how Desi Jones played. Who's that Miami receiver? The real good Malachi Tony. Played Malachi Tony on the scout team and looked really good doing that this year. So that's exciting to see. Desi Jones out of New Jersey. I don't know if it was Bergen Catholic or not. I can't remember, but a player out of New Jersey. Deshaun Stewart. He came here with him in the class. Also brought up Chris Henry, Jaquaden Guilford, Brock Boyd. It reminded me, I had a conversation today about how these workouts are going. So I got some early workout nuggets I'll throw in on the next show as well. Okay, here we go. I think it's not the last one. the tight end position, Ryan Day started off by saying that the room starts with Bennett Christian. And it scared me at first, but I believe he's talking about leadership. Obviously, been in the program for a long time. He's the leader in the room. I hope that's why he said that. But he also said, just a reminder, Ryan Day said Nate Roberts is the most talented tight end to come through this program in a long while. In a long while. So, I think combined with Bennett Christian and his blocking and his mentality that he has in this room brings toughness. Bennett Christian is definitely one tough son of a gun. He brings that attribute to the room. He's got to take a step forward this year for sure. I think there's a lot of hate going his way. When you look at the positions he was put in this year with the red zone packaging and stuff, I know that's what upset a lot of people, but he didn't have his best year. He needs to step up. Nate Roberts, Ryan Day, one of the most talented, so I expect a lot out of him this year. He also talked about seventh-year senior Hunter, brought him on the show from Northwestern. He said he showed up and showed out when Northwestern played in Michigan, and that's what caught their eye. So he's talented. Brought in Mason from OU, talked about toughness, talked about the main thing in the tight end set with this offense is versatility. You know what I mean? If you're only a tight end that can block, or if you're only a tight end that can be a receiver, you're going to have a hard time getting on the field here at Ohio State, is what he said. Finally, something I forgot to mention is that Ohio State, there's a record broke this year at the Ohio State's recruiting class, and that is we had the most early enrollees in Ohio State history. There is only one recruit that did not enroll early, and that is Tucker Smith out of Arizona. All the rest are there now. They're working out, so great opportunity for these freshmen because, as you know, right, even in just past 3 years, I can point out so many examples of, unfortunately, man, if you don't enroll early, I mean, you set your whole career back. You just do. Look at Mylan Graham. I mean, we'll see with Turbo Rogers. He came in late, which I got some stuff on Turbo Rogers for you guys I'm very excited about. But anyway, he brought up special teams, brought up the kicker, Connor, and he brought up the long snapper and said, the long snapper we got is the best long snapper in the country. Talked about how important that is as well. He talked about how a lot of people in the kicking community think Connor Hawkins is one of the best kickers in the nation, so that was good to hear. Offensive line, here's some juicy stuff as well. The first thing he said at the offensive line, yes, Turbo was hurt last year. Came in hurt, got injured again. So, yeah, he was dealing with an injury. The first thing out of his mouth about the offensive line was the portal was not in play here, right? He said it took everything that they had just to get the guys they have to come back. And I agree with him. I've told you guys this before. He talked about how experience is the most important thing on the offensive line. He also talked about he knows the 2 games they didn't play really well, but he said a lot of things went into that, as we've talked about continuously on this show. Ryan Day, which, you got to say this as a coach, but I believe him. He said he thinks they can be 7 or 8 deep this year. They brought up Ian Moore, said he thinks that he can be a player this year. And then he brought up Josh Padilla at right guard. Those were the only names he was going to bring up, but then I think it clicked in his head that he has to say more names, so he brought up Gabe Van Sickle and Jake Cook as well. But I agree. I think we'll have 7 deep for sure this year. If you add Josh Padilla as that 6th one, and I think that 7th spot, you got Jake Cook, Gabe Van Sickle, Carter Lowe. Dude, if I keep hearing what I'm hearing about Sam Greer, I'm going to put him in the conversation too. But I'll just tell you, Sam Greer is a freak of nature in a good way, a freak of nature. But talked about the running back position, and which I knew this information well before this, but Bo Jackson, Isaiah West out for spring ball because of shoulder injuries. I'm not sure it's as big a deal as what people are making it out to be. It's a shoulder injury. I'm trying to dig more in that and see, hey, what are they still doing? You know what I mean? Or, I'm sure the Buckeyes still have them doing certain things. These day and age, sports medicine, man, things can get healed awful quickly, and it's not a lower body injuries. So brought up Jacoby Jackson, and I did a show specifically on him. I think he's one of the sleepers in this portal class. I still do. But I also remind people I was dead wrong about CJ last year. I said the same thing about CJ. But this year, I think he's a sleeper because of intel I got from some coaches at Florida, or a coach at Florida. So really, that's not my intel. That's the coach's intel at Florida. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to say his name so you guys can blame him. He brought up Turbo Rogers, and he brought up Legend Bay as well. And as you know, if you watch Scoop and you watch the Buckeye boys here, it's not a secret that Legend Bay will be making an impact on this year's team. He will. Ryan Day said as much by calling him a poor man's Tyreek Hill, and he wasn't done there. Ryan Day continued by saying he is a lightning in a bottle. If you know anything about his recruitment, you know Ohio State must have wanted this player very, very much, considering what was going on in his recruitment. One last thing I forgot to mention in the talent acquisition is how Ryan Day mentioned how important it is for them to watch senior evaluations. So I think, in my opinion, you're going to see recruiting nationally slow down a little bit this year early, and things are going to pick up a lot more. There's going to be a lot more after senior year. There's going to be a lot more movement this year than there has been any other year. So that is my opinion. Jeremiah, why are you laughing at? Yeah, I know. Poor man's. I was surprised he said that too. All right, y'all. Oh, because I said Tyreek. My bad. You guys know I'm not good with names. Don't laugh at me, man. I'm not good with names, dude. Tyreek Williams, Tyreek Hill, Tyquan Lewis. There's just a lot of names, man. A lot of names. All right, y'all. Steely, thanks for the $1.99, brother. He said, y'all are freaking hilarious. Love you, chat. Yeah. If I would have read the chat tonight, I would not have been able to do the show. What up, Johnny? Dude, I seen you ask B. Moses for Tinker. He ain't got Tink. I do, man. And thanks for the $4.99. Show Tinker. Oh, absolutely, Tinker. Come here. Yeah. You're famous. Tinker was a little bit bad today. My parents are here visiting, and my dad made pancakes this morning and set his plate on the table and walked out the door. And you leave, there's syrup all over the plate. When I get home today, Tink starts licking me, and I'm like, what is that smell? Why do you smell like cinnamon? Why do you smell? And then I felt her little beard, and it's all sticky and hard and crusty. So she got all jacked up on syrup today. So I think she's crashing right now. Yeah, she's a little sucker. I got a soft spot for dogs, man. It's bad, especially little Tank here. She's just so cute, man. Yeah, I know. Daddy loves. All righty, y'all. Hey, appreciate you guys for watching, man. Got some shows lined up. Gonna be talking about my nuggets I have from these early workouts. We're gonna be going over the recruiting class again. Still got to go down through the defensive depth chart for this upcoming season. And of course, I'm always working on getting guests on here. It's hard to get guys scheduled anymore, but Kellen Weimer should be coming on. Rashid Street should be coming on at some point. So I'll let y'all know when that is going to happen. I appreciate you guys for sticking around the whole time. Please don't forget, hit that like button, that subscribe button on both channels, Buckeye Scoop and Buckeye Boys, the Spreaker app, Apple Podcast, and the Buckeye Scoop message board. Go do that as well. And a reminder, on the Buckeye Boys channel, you can become a member for $1.99. And also, please go check out the Buckeye Boys Instagram account. I'm going to start doing more on that. I got somebody helping me with that. Give me a follow on that. If you could help us out, it's free. Just get more love on the Instagram side of things. But I appreciate you guys for watching. We'll be on here tomorrow, probably me in Nevada on the Scoop channel. So we'll see y'all tomorrow. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Go Buckeyes. OH.